Hi everyone, Sajid Amit here, and this review is of the Raal in 1995 ribbon current driver interface silver multi-strand coaxial windings. This is a transformer, but it's more art than transformer, and this is essentially what you drive a Raal Immanis with. So essentially, the way it works, and in case you didn't know, of course, this review is not for everyone because the Raal Immanis is an incredibly expensive headphone. It's $10,000, and a lot of you might be like, a lot of you don't have issues with headphones being priced so aggressively. So exorbitantly rather, and I understand that. But I maybe towards the end of this discussion, I'll talk a bit about headphone pricing. But the Raal 1995 Immanis is one of the best headphones on the planet, if not by far the best headphone on the planet, which is what a lot of people are saying in the Summit 5 circles. So you have to use this impedance adapter through which is essentially a transformer, which allows you to then use any headphone amplifier. So previously, what you had to do, you used to get these resistor boxes, and then you were using 100 watt amplifiers, speaker amplifiers, to drive ribbon headphones. But nowadays, this is what people use, and it is something that I think makes a significant difference to the sound. Because if you bought the Raal Immanis or the Raal Magna in the past, you were using a copper wired transformer, and you were using copper cables, and then the engineer behind this, Alex, spent a lot of time tinkering with trying to figure out how to generate even more resolution, even more performance from the Raal Immanis, and lose less to the transformer. And that labor of love led to the release of this product. I do want to show you the cables as well. These are the silver cables. They're called the Star-12, not to be confused with the Star-8. So they even have a very different jacket, as you can tell. The jacket is a little more, it glistens more, it catches light more, it looks more premium. And I think, these are not the most ergonomic cables around if you ever want to buy these cables, because you can also buy the cables. So guys, it's a pack of 3. So you have this transformer, and then you have this RCD cable, which is essentially the cable that goes from the headphone to the RCD, right? The ribbon current drive interface. And then you also have this cable that connects, this is also a silver cable that connects the RCD, the transformer, with the headphone amplifier. So it's a bundle of 3. And you can chop and change. So you can use a copper connector or the cable between the RCD and the headphone, or you can use the copper between the amplifier and the RCD. So essentially, it's 3 parts. So this might, I'm sorry, I just bumped my camera. So this might trigger the OCD for a bunch of you. And if it does, then it does. But that's not what Raal is worried about. Like, these are not the most ergonomic cables in the world, but they are fine, I think. And and honestly speaking, Raal doesn't care if they're not ergonomic, because Raal is going for maximum performance, and they're pretty open about this. This is the level of memory and stiffness these cables have, which is okay. We're used to this. And this is a slightly more flexible cable, so just so you know. So what do these sound like? And of course, they come with this in this Pelican case, very, very sturdy. Love this case. So first and foremost, you have to understand what the Immanis 1995 sound like. The Raal 1995 Immanis sounds like, and I've reviewed that like a gazillion times. You can please check out my reviews of the Raal 1995 Immanis. I've done like a shootout Suzvara. I've done a written review for Audiophile Style. I'll link all of that in the description section of this video, and I'll also, add the email address of Alex, the engineer, the mastermind, the owner of Raal 1995 Immanis. Alex is honestly a genius. He spends so much time on Headfight threads, just engaging people. It's phenomenal. I love Alex. I've met him. I just think he's incredible, because he has been going around divulging, sharing his thoughts, his diagrams, his intentions behind all of this. And honestly speaking, if you hang around at the water cooler thread on Headfi, or the Raal threads, you'll see how much time he spends just talking to people, and you'll see the love he gets from owners of this. I'm yet to meet an owner of this who hasn't loved it, Guys, I'm in a bit of a different situation now because I'm also getting into my watch hobby. So, I'm investing less. I'm trying to cull my stables. So a lot of my headphones will get sold or have been by the time this comes out. Because I'm investing in a lot of different hobbies now. Like I said, a watch hobby I recently. So it is what it is. So I am not going to be able to keep all the headphones. I recently sold my Susvara as well, and I love the Susvara OG. But all that being said, um, the Raal Immanis is still the best headphone on the planet, even without the silver transformer or these silver cables. I mean, I think it beats, for my preferences, most headphones, including the Susvara OG and the Susvara UV Unveiled. The reason why it beats Unveiled is because I think it does have a much better bass, which is important for me. So it's a totally more complete headphone. I think the Susvara Unveiled probably has a little more emotion in the vocals, so people love that, and a little more intimate, and I get it. So you could even say Susvara Unveiled has better mid-range. The Susvara Unveiled has, I think, better ergonomics as well, and the treble is honestly a toss-up. But when it comes to technical performance, I think the Raal strips ahead if you're amping it right with the right source chains, because the better quality source chain you have, the more you get out of the Immanis. When with the Immanis, you get a breathtakingly evident step up in sheer resolution, in sheer imaging prowess, in sheer visceral slam and punch, superseded only by the bass, the 1266. And you get this ability to sort of not just see imaging on a lateral plane, but also back to front. So it's a technically superior headphone with and of course, like I said, Susvara Unveiled perhaps has a better mid-range, but the Raal mid-range is stellar. And if you're tubing it like I do with the Riviera Labs AIC10, which is an incredibly high-end amplifier, or any other tube amp, honestly, that is deserving of a Raal, or the Raal deserves, and Immanis deserves. And there are a bunch of these amps that you can use. You can use the Primavera Graphomatic, you can use the Woo audio amps. Then what happens is you are then getting the maximum performance of the Immanis, and you can then the Immanis rivals Susvara for mid-range. So I think the Immanis, if you have the means to go all out, is the best headphone on the planet, and I think it beats, to my mind, even the HE1 for in a variety of parameters. So then why would you invest $6,000 plus in getting a transformer and these silver cables? And you might be wondering why this price so much. So first of all, of course, you are paying for a master engineer who I do think has become historically significant, Alex, because of everything he's done with the transformer, with the ribbon technology so far. Every headphone he's made has been a hit. The SR1A people are now going back to, and they're saying, oh wow, it's currently called SR1B, it's the winged headphone. People are now going back and saying, wow, this was better than I ever thought, right? Because now they're realizing, oh, the timbre was actually very good, and now the people, so it's been covered now by a bunch of reviewers all over again, and it's being talked about. A lot of my friends have bought it back. The CA1A, which is a way in which Alex proved that he can make a headphone that was more traditional, still get what is good about a ribbon headphone, which is resolution and timbre and speed, and also be able to give you good bass. CA1 is very relevant. And then you have the Magla and the Immanis, so Alex is already, I think, has created a certain level of historical significance about himself and the brand of Raal, and I just can't wait to see what he does with Raal after this. And I do know for a fact he's going to make better and better headphones at some point, and even amplifiers, right? So you're paying for his time, you're paying for the R&D, you're paying for the fact that this is not a mass-produced product. It's literally produced on demand, in the sense that there is an assessment of how many will get sold. Like, he doesn't sell tens of thousands of these, right? So there is that aspect of it, right? So the margins have to make sense. But what was striking for me is not just the technical improvement to the Immanis, which it does make. what was striking for me is the tonality changes that are all upgrades, because silver we associate with brightness and all that, right? But silver done right is not bright. And I just want to repeat that because I felt the same way about best quality silver cables from Norn, which is a much less expensive brand. Norn is run by Trevor. So just so you know, I also dabble in Norn is still expensive. Like I have $1,000 cables from them, or $1,500 cables from them, and even $2,000 cables from them. But it's not $6,000 territory where you're paying for, of course, three things: this and a couple of cables. But when you get the best application of silver and your wiring and your transformers, you do get a different kind of treble. So it's not more treble in the sense of like being more bright and brittle. It's just better treble. And I can't emphasize the treble quality of this headphone, because the treble quality of this headphone, it affects everything. It affects mid-range, it affects the bass. So the bass texture just goes through the roof. And I'm hearing things in the bass notes that I've never heard before. I'm just hearing more of the lower frequencies of all kinds of instruments. Like even, certain kinds of guitars, like riff guitars, do token parts of the bass frequency to have weight in them. And I'm hearing that weight and texture in a lot of these instruments. I'm hearing just a little more grunt in male vocals. I'm hearing, so that's not just the treble, right? But I'll come to the bass as well. The treble is just stunning here. I'm getting a sense of a very wide stage and a certain level of continuity in this stage that is making the Immanis sound a little more out of the head, a little more speaker-like. I'm getting a sense that's a little more speaker-like, a little more filled out, and I'm getting sounds that are further perceptually from me. So this transformer setup with the cables is doing something with the treble that's just making things sound wider, more fluid, and just wider. And the Raal was always very tall, and that height remains. There's no perceptible change in the height, but it's wider, it's more immersive. That's one. And more resolving. All across the frequency spectrum. Coming to mid-range, somehow, and of course there are tonal changes involved with something like this, and the cables, somehow the mid-range recession, which I never had a problem with because I don't like the shouty upper mids of Harman, somehow the mid-range recession is gone. And I miss it, but I do think most of you will like it, because one of the reasons why I love the Immanis is that it's a bit, the mid-range recession being what it is, it just allows you to feel a certain depth of stage, which is still there. But now I think what's working out, and I do understand that Alex has tweaked it and tuned it, so he wanted to give you a more complete experience. But now what happens is you're getting vocals up and close a little more, which I used to be able to generate with my Audma headphone amplifier, because the headphone DAC amp has a very forward upper mid. But now I'm getting a very sort of right in terms of forwardness of upper mid. So a lot of things like Lana Del Rey is sounding more intimate, Nora Jones is sounding more intimate, even Chris Cornell is sounding more intimate. And I do think a lot of people go for that, because this vocal intimacy has a nice way of balancing out the treble extension, which the Raal always had. But in this instance, I find the treble far less fatiguing. It was never fatiguing for me, but I can sense, if I were switching, let's say, between a Sennheiser HD6XX, so I have a lot of my headphones here, but that's not my full stable. I have other headphones right here. The Sennheiser HD6XX is very roll off in the treble, and if I was ever being between that and the Immanis, and you might wonder why one would do that, because I like all kinds of headphones. It would take a minute to adjust to the Immanis, because the Immanis has treble, where the X6XX doesn't really have a lot of treble. But I don't feel that anymore, because there's something about the silver setup, the cables, and the transformer that just makes this treble a little more fluid and smooth, I dare say. And finally, the bass department. The bass department is very profoundly impacted with this because I'm getting a lot of deep, and I hope someone measures this because I'm getting a more palpable sense of bass extension, bass punch. I'm getting a texture, guy. This is about texture. You're just getting so much more sound out of music. I'm getting so much more sound. I'm getting nuances. I'm getting resolution. I'm hearing things I've never heard before, as the cliche goes, and that is the best way to end this discussion and review because, guys, buy this if you want to hear things you've never heard before. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next one. Bye-bye.